Hey everybody, welcome to Dentists in the Know podcast. As you all know, we do a hump day happy hour every single Wednesday just to talk to all of our followers about all of the current trends, politics, and education in the dental world. Well, today, it may not be hump day, my friends, but we are certainly having a little happy hour
It's
up
always
here.
happy hour.
We have to keep the tradition because our goal is to bring you honest, vetted information, but we want to do it in the most unpretentious way. We want it to be a conversation. We want all of you to be involved. So welcome to Dentists in the Know. I'm with two of the best people in the world. My name is Dr. Jeff Horowitz. To the left of me is Dr. Jennifer Bell. And to her left is Dr. Chad Duplantis. And all three of us are educators. We are all business owners. And our job is to bring all of you in the know. So how is the meeting going so far for you guys? And tell me, what's exciting you?
You know, this meeting has been more than I anticipated. It's been a fantastic event. I arrived on Thursday afternoon and kind of got cranking on Friday. I arrived on Wednesday afternoon. My days are all off. I don't know what day it is. It's Saturday,
You're in the
guess.
convention
Have
time
you taken the
zone
first
now.
sip yet?
Yes.
I did take my first sip, and it's on an empty stomach, so you never know where this is going to go. But it's never too early to start, and it is 5 o'clock somewhere. So I arrived on Wednesday evening. I lectured all day on Thursday, which was a lot of fun. Ran into some colleagues, went to dinner with some colleagues on Thursday evening. On Friday, you arrived. We went and we did Disney yesterday. I mean, who says you're too old to do Disney? You're never too old to do Disney.
I went to Mars yesterday.
Yeah,
I went to Mars.
So we did Epcot yesterday, and one of the things I want to say about the meeting is this is really well put together. It takes in all the bits of dentistry, all the bits of Orlando, all the bits of Florida in general. Yesterday, there's one thing that, there's always something that kind of catches your eye. I mean, yesterday I think they had a freaking live alligator here, which is pretty cool. But yesterday they also had this dinosaur that was like, from Jurassic Park. Somebody was walking around with their kid, and just to see the joy in that child's eyes when they had the live dinosaur playing with them. I mean, the ADA didn't leave any stone unturned. And then
were they not worried about a lawsuit because literally a dinosaur will bite a baby? That's what I've heard.
This dinosaur was a non-biting dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yes. It was a non-biting dinosaur. But then turn it over. This morning we all kind of convened, and JB, what's been going on in our podcasting
What a cool day
booth?
we've had so far. So we've been hanging out in the podcasters hub and influencers, if you will. We've hung out with some of our great friends and guests. We've had both on the program and future guests that are going to come hang out with us for another Hump Day Happy Hour. And the vibe over there is so fun because there's so many different types of podcasts that are happening simultaneously. We're getting to learn a lot from each other, but also bring a lot of awareness to what's happening here at SmileCon. It's such a cool opportunity to be a part of a much larger thing than our little tiny weekly podcast, right?
Well, first of all, anytime the band is together is a great day for me. So our show is the three of us, right? And so we've had this ability to sit in our booth over there, have so many of our followers and guests come by, and we've talked already. I mean, we've talked about artificial intelligence, we've talked about public health. We've talked about so many great new products, and literally it's only 12 o'clock now.
Right.
So, what a great day. It's always great to be around like-minded people.
Agreed.
And so today was one of those days where we started out, everybody's leaving. It's Saturday. Everybody's looking to get home. We started out today with okay, what are we going to do? Who are we going to interview? We haven't had a moment to breathe since we opened that booth until now. And I would be amiss if I didn't say that yesterday I got to sit up on the stage with Dr.
David Rice.
And Dr. Pam Maragliano Munoz, and it was an amazing event. But this is really well put together by the ADA too. This podcaster hub and this MainStage.
Kudos.
More meetings need to look at.
That was a lot of fun yesterday. We talked about a lot of things, and we're going to touch upon those and build upon that today. So, this is fun.
I love it.
So for those of you that are not already followers of Dentists in the Know, in our Hump Day Happy Hour, program, we'll usually do a little bit of banter at the beginning, just like you're seeing now. Jennifer comes to us as someone who's been so involved in the AGD and the ADA as well. She served as a delegate for both. She's just so well informed when it comes to dentistry, and when we started this thing, we said there is nobody better to bring forth the news of dentistry, what's going on in the world. When we started, we were in the middle of COVID, and we said, let's get some great information out there, real information, vetted information. And we knew that you were the person that had to do this. And so with that said, our program every week is a little bit of banter. Jennifer brings all the current news of what's going on in dentistry, and then we interview somebody from the industry. That is, they can be in education, they can be dentists, sometimes they're presidents of companies. It really, the scope has been just tremendous, and we thank you for allowing us to be so well received. But with that said, let's kind of keep to our Hump Day Happy Hour program. And do you have any news for us or anything that you
always have
I know
news.
you always
That
have
is,
news.
It's kind of my jam.
It is your
First
jam.
off, we're at a meeting where there's legislative activities with the delegates happening as well as education. This is where I live. This is my sweet spot. So I'm right at home with what's happening right now. But we would miss an opportunity if we didn't talk about probably one of the biggest news stories of the ADA over the last 6 months. And that's been California's toying around with leaving the tripart system. And so currently the succession was not successful, and we're all going to stay united as a full front in the ADA. But I think it's an interesting opportunity, if you weren't aware, that that California was leading a charge at one point to remove themselves from the ADA's tripart system, which currently allows states to have their constituency be an automatic part of the ADA. Brought up a lot of interesting debate, certainly forced a lot of difficult conversations, I think, amongst the delegates, also amongst dentists who are members, to sort of look at how do we evolve and become relevant, continue to optimize the investment in organized dentistry to meet the needs of all members in all of our tripart system. And so, it'll be interesting to see how this evolves over the next couple of years. Will this continue to spark debate? Will other states follow suit? I don't think anybody knows at this point how it will go. But luckily, as you like to say, the band is still together, and we're going to move forward as a united front. In addition, we mentioned this week that Smile Direct Club did file bankruptcy. It's a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is just a reworking of the finances. It'll allow them to restructure their debt and to hopefully, or I guess we won't say hopefully, but to restructure their debt in such a way that financially they can continue to move forward. They do currently have patients in active care. They have 110 locations throughout the U.S., which I actually was pretty astonished to read.
I was as well.
I did not know that. And the founders of Smile Direct have injected another $20 million in capital to continue to carry them through this bankruptcy period. So I know many dentists were maybe slightly secretly excited to see some bankruptcy announcement coming out of Smile Direct. I wouldn't be throwing any confetti guns quite yet. I think they're still going to be a player in the marketplace for clear aligner therapy. And the last thing that we wanted to talk about on the legislative side, the ADA was an ardent supporter of the Primary Care and Workforce Act that was passed in September through the HELP Committee. This is to bring more funding back to programs that actually lost funding before COVID, to help re-energize the movement of dentists moving back into primary care and rural health areas to be able to serve those communities that are lacking in both primary care and dental services. This is just the tip of the iceberg, I think, for what we're going to see as a reinvigoration on the legislative side to want to move more attention towards both workforce issues that we're currently having in medicine and dentistry, but also to bring to the community those professionals that we need to continue to service a population that often finds it very difficult to get care. And so the support will continue for this. It did pass through and helped re-energize that funding that was going to sunset September 30th. But I don't think the work stops there. I think the ADA will continue to provide legislative support to continue to reach out to their members when opportunities are going to come forward, that we're going to push more into the underserved communities. And the workforce issue alone, whether it's for the underserved or for just the general population, is definitely a hot topic, and I think will continue for the next few years.
So Jennifer, I've got to ask, do you feel like the new dentists coming out are as informed about what's going on in organized dentistry as maybe we were? I felt like when I got out of school, which was a little before you, just a little, but I feel like there was always this great push to become active in organized dentistry, which started in dental school and really continued thereafter. And you know, I immediately became involved. That's where I met you. I just don't know that dentists are made as aware of the current topics and the things that are really so important to how their future is going to happen without having some kind of involvement in either the tripartite or the AGD or other groups as well. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do here, and we hope that we can motivate more young dentists to become involved and to understand that what's going on really affects our profession. I mean, the thing in California, do you see this as an ongoing trend?
So I think, first off, I would say for the younger dentists coming out, and that can be age and or just years of experience, before, when you and I and Chad entered the workforce, community was an important thing.
By the way, I love that you included me in the you and Chad thing.
Yeah. Community was really important, and folks were energized to move into organized dentistry because they wanted connection. We needed to be in community with each other, in fellowship with one another. That came alongside advocacy and legislative issues as well. But really the core of it was to be together. Now, with social media and with a lot of virtual options that are available, a lot of specialized groups for niche areas of interest, younger professionals are finding their community in other ways. They don't need to go to be a part of organized dentistry, or at least that's how they feel, because they're getting community in other spaces. So I think that's going to be an important part for all organized dentistry, to look at ways to bring them back into the community, to find that fellowship, to be a part of the advocacy piece of it, because it will dictate what their profession and what their career will look like for the next 30 years, and to help them understand that it has a place amongst this Rolodex of groups that they participate in. It's a piece of that puzzle. So I think, I hope what happened in California, what I hope comes from that is it's an opening of a conversation for the ADA and for other groups to make sure that they're continuing to be responsive and meet the needs of their membership base. I genuinely hope that others won't fall out of favor with the ADA. I'd like to see the whole group stay together, but I do think it sparked a lot of really hard conversations that probably, frankly, had to be had. And so, that's all opinion. There's no fact checking on that.
So Chad, how do you feel about the state of community in dentistry?
So, I mean, I kind of had something that I was going to say, but it falls into the question that you asked. But the fear that I have is that, did we just place a Band-Aid on the California issue? Or is this something that we're truly going to be able to correct and prevent from happening in the future? Because if California falls, it's a domino effect. There's going to be, I just see it happening. So yes, I'm very thankful that California didn't fall and California did not, secede or however you want to put it. But, my question is that I think that we need the community. We need the advocacy. How does the ADA market that to their members to prevent this from happening in the future? I don't have the answer. That's not my job. It's way above my pay grade. But I think that some of our dollars need to be put into, damage control. And I think some of our dollars need to be put into promoting that younger dentist to realize the benefit of advocacy And I think, unfortunately, some of that's going to come down to the almighty dollar, because it's not inexpensive. For what if you look at what you get, there is value there.
Sure.
But it's not inexpensive. And so I hope that the ADA puts money into damage control and prevention rather than this just being a Band-Aid, a quick fix, and are we going to be addressing this next year, and the next year, and the next year, and does the problem gain momentum and become a larger issue? And I hope that's not the case, but I think it's something that they really need to put money into.
Well, I think the point that a lot of people are missing in all of this about involvement, I think the part that we're truly underselling is the sense of community that comes from being a part of an organization, and the friendships. And we always joke around. Jennifer came up with this, and she says, as Dennis in the Know, we're kind of the CE after the CE, that we like to digest it and talk about it amongst friends and say, hey, do you agree with what he or she was just saying? Do you think this will work? Do you think this will not work? And so that's, I fear, what may be missing by having less people involved in organizations
Sure.
like the ADA, and in live learning,
Sure.
especially because it's something that we learn, not just learn, but we gain as much emotionally, spiritually, educationally. We gain as much that way through the people that we come into contact with. And that's just something, I know I'm the old guy here, and I love all the virtual stuff that we do, but I really think that that's something that it's just intangible in a virtual format.
Well, and never underestimate, there are plenty of folks out there that are happy to vote on your behalf that have no DDS or DMD attached to their name at all, making rules about how you will practice in the future. So there's community and opportunity for fellowship within that, but at the end of the day, there's plenty of folks who would like to dictate what our careers would look like.
Yes.
And when we don't participate in that process, and look what happened with the AMA, and their membership numbers dropped, their ability to influence DC and make change really also changed or dropped as well. The ADA has continued to maintain a pretty strong membership number so that when they speak, there is influence.
Right.
And that's really important because at the end of the day, they're, as a good friend of mine, Dr. Gary Oyster, who's been a renowned ADA delegate and a member of the ADA leadership for a very long time out of North Carolina, would say, I am a member of the Party D, and that stands for dentist.
Yeah.
And so he's in favor of any candidate that supports what is in good favor for the dental profession.
So let's pivot a little bit, because
Pivot.
I
Like
love,
friends.
yeah, we're going to go after big words today. Pivot. We're going to
Are
pivot.
you sure that's a good plan for you?
Yeah. Shush. Hush. No, I
long as
love
you don't have
what
to
we did.
spell it.
Let's
Can,
break.
can we work the word impetus into
Yes,
this? I
we
think
can.
the
We can.
theme of the day is impetus.
Impetus.
Can we work
Yeah.
that
Yes.
word in there
As
somehow?
long
Yes.
as he doesn't have to spell it.
Yes, I could spell it too. So let's talk a little bit about the second news topic, all right? And I don't want to talk about it in direction towards that one company. I want to talk about it in general as to the threat or the effect that mail order dentistry is going to have on our profession.
Ooh, good topic.
And
Now
you know,
you can
I
get
think
dentures in the mail?
that the two go hand in hand. You know, I can see mail order aligners. I don't agree with it. I'm going to be, and that's my opinion. I can see mail order night guards. I don't agree with it, and that's my opinion. The one thing that I can't freaking wrap my head around is the news that comes on or the advertisement that comes on the news every single day on my way to work about just taking your own impressions and sending them in, and voila, with a little help, you get a denture.
Y'all, if dentures were that easy,
Right.
I mean,
every
right.
dentist would be
That-
doing
yeah,
them,
that-
right?
That's
They
why
most
dentists
hate
are
them.
saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to increase my fee by $2,000
Right.
or
Exactly.
not do them
That's
anymore.
exactly
but
right.
let's generalize
Who's getting
this.
all those post-op visits?
Thank you. Let's see what kind of effect is this going to have on dentistry, and I'd like to know, I mean, I can't get the answer right now, but when we're talking about, because it goes hand in hand with what we were talking about before, what's the ADA going to do to advocate for us and promote us to prevent this from becoming detrimental to our profession?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's interesting to me, Chad, because while it's funny that was the tipping point for you, because I get it, like, who's going to do all these post-op visits,
Sure.
who's going to see these patients? But really where it broke down for me was very early on, and what I found most disturbing was, I am very much about functional dentistry, about the airway, TMJ, orthodontic concerns. So, I've had a problem with all of it. I can't tell you how many cases of mail order dentistry that I have had to fix because somebody missed an airway concern. Somebody missed a temporomandibular joint concern. And so at least, and I'm not suggesting that this legitimizes it, but at least when we talk about like prosthetic teeth, they have the ability to say, this is just for looks. This is just a cosmetic procedure. This is not to be used for function, or is not to be used for any kind of a bite problem or anything like that. Where I get really concerned is where there are companies out there saying, stop snoring, right?
Yeah.
And we know that 70% of snorers are going to test positive for sleep apnea, a life-threatening condition, and we have a company that's allowing someone to take impressions on themselves and try to stop the snoring when there's a good chance that they have a condition that will on average take 10 to 15 years off of their life, and yet they're led to believe that they've stopped snoring, so life is good.
Well, and because you lecture on this, some of those are being put in worse therapeutic positions.
Absolutely.
You know, so are you making the apnea worse with these over-the-counter appliances
What
as
a
well?
great point, because someone in a hard night guard, these companies that are just making hard night guards, if a patient happens to have sleep apnea, we know statistically, there are studies on this. Gilles Levine, one of the great authors of everything about functional dentistry, bruxism, we have studies that go back more than 10 years that tell us if you put a hard night guard in a patient that has sleep apnea, the likelihood is greater than 50% that they're going to get worse. So how do we do this stuff mail order and just say, well, there's a dentist that's looking at it on the back end? I'm sorry, it doesn't cut it, and I would like to see more advocacy on our behalf for that.
So wouldn't it be great? What's on a tube of toothpaste? The ADA
Seal of approval.
Seal of approval.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if these companies were strong-armed into this product is not endorsed by the American Dental Association. I don't know that it would ever happen.
Yeah, I love it. I love where you're going with this.
Mean, there's got to be something, and we need help out there. And I know we put this on our forum a couple of weeks ago, and I was quite simply amazed at some of the responses that I get. Yes, this is a free enterprise. There are people, I want people to make money. I want people to succeed. I want to see entrepreneurs, but I don't want to see that at the detriment of our profession. And unfortunately, that's where some of this is headed. And I think a lot of dentists would agree with us that we don't want this to be detrimental to our profession. And right now, I hate 100%. To say it, I see it as being so.
Shall we get on to the main event?
I think we shall.
No. Let's stay.
You want to
stay right here? Let's just stay right here. This wine is good.
Yeah.
This conversation's good. But I guess let's get on.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we thought we'd open up the discussion a little bit to talk about what are some of the things that we're doing in our offices right now, just sort of a day in the life that we absolutely cannot live without. If you took it away from us, we would probably quit dentistry altogether. I don't want to think about the day where I can't use X. Chad, what is it right now for you?
Right now I'm going to have to say it's my intraoral scanner. And, I started scanning in 2004. 2004 as part of a joint system.
Yep.
And, you know, in order to scan, you had to have a mill. And, you know, in 2007, that changed a little bit. We backed off. And then in 2012, 2013, we kind of jumped back in again. And we were really with the standalone scanner. If you would have told me that that would have existed in 2004, I mean, I'm dating myself right now, I would have said you're freaking crazy. I sat in on a key opinion leader meeting in 2014, 2015, and we were talking about making a black and white scanner, which doesn't exist, which at the time was the most accurate scanner on the market, utilizing it as a preventive measure within the practice to promote periodontal care, to promote hygiene, to promote people not wearing their teeth. I think we all looked at each other like, what the heck are these people talking about? This is never going to happen. I mean, you need a scanner to make a restoration. That's it. How wrong were we?
Right.
How wrong were we? I mean, you know, the thing is that now when a patient comes into our practice, we do a wellness scan. We do our radiographic imaging. We do our periodontal charting. We do our intraoral images. We do a cancer screen, and then we do a wellness scan. And I will tell you that the images that are presented, and yes, we all have our favorites, but you can do it with any scanner that you have in your practice. The images that are created are so powerful, and it engages the patient, and it increases case acceptance, and the list goes on and on and on. Yes, the capabilities differ between the different systems, but right now, that is the most powerful tool in my practice to promote. That's the engine. That's what drives the rest of the practice. All of the rest are parts of the vehicle. That is the engine, and man, we are on cruise control, but we're bumping it up a notch every single year because of that scanner. I can't live without it.
Well, and that goes into the co-diagnosis, which we've talked a lot about.
Absolutely.
Having the technology support the conversation so that ultimately, you know, one of my favorite lines with patients is, you don't need to be a dentist to be able to see that this might be an issue that we need to discuss. When they can visualize and see with the support of technology, to have that similar conversation and to look at you and go, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to fix that or not?
Yeah.
That is such a much easier conversation than the convincing, the quote unquote selling, that, you know, trying to help patients understand. They're seeing it themselves.
There's a psychological experiment from the 70s. And
oh, Lord, here we go.
Dr. Douglas Nelson and his team did a psychological experiment. 65% of the information that was presented visually was retained, whereas only 10% of it presented orally was retained. If we're not presenting with images, we're losing validity. My good friend sitting right over there, Dr. Kelly Tanner, presented a study from the Spear Institute that greater than 90% of patients who can visualize what's going on are going to want to explore financing, treatment options, proceed with treatment. That's proven.
Yeah.
We need to be presenting with these images. Jeff, how do you feel about that?
What do you not want to live without?
So,
or you can talk about intraoral scanning.
It's interesting that you used the analogy of an engine to drive your practice, and it's also interesting that you brought up the statistics about visualization, because that's always been, obviously, you know, I'm a talker, but we know most of what we say is not retained long term. We know it as good as we think
That's
we are.
why we use slides.
Yeah. So yeah, let me
Which
ask
we
you.
don't have any.
Yeah,
damn it.
exactly.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, you guys know what would you guess is what I'm going to talk about right now? What would you guess? The technology that I could not live without. Chad, I know you know it. JB, you might know it.
I don't know if I know.
I'm going to say, Jeff, it's your Palm Pilot.
It's my Palm Pilot.
It's your Palm Pilot.
You know, when you combine a little screen with those keypads that you can actually feel. No.
Wait, no, it's your BlackBerry.
It's yes. No, here's what it is. CBCT.
Absolutely, yeah.
CBCT. It is 2023. And I get in trouble for saying this. It's a little bit of a soapbox.
We may have to edit this out.
Yeah, we may. I've gotten in trouble for saying this. But I wholeheartedly believe this in my soul, that in 2023, every single general dentist should have access to a cone beam CT. every single dentist. And I don't mean every one of you has to go out and buy one. I'm saying every one of you should have a cone beam CT within walking distance of your practice from a diagnostic standpoint. So, I mean, you know, I'm a functional guy, right? I'm always looking at airway on every patient. I'm always looking at the joint on every patient. I'm always looking at occlusal problems on every patient. And so for me, there's no way that I can get more information quickly than by taking a CBCT. And with the amount of radiation that we're talking about now and the cost dropping so low, my first machine I bought over 15 years ago was a $200,000 machine, and it paid for itself. It paid for itself right away just because of the images we're taking. The engine, as you described, Chad, was that I wasn't placing implants at the time, but yet my implant restorative caseload went way up. My case acceptance went way up. Why? Because I had something that I could show them. I had something that would give them that visual. And for me, the part that we have often overlooked in dentistry is all this functional stuff. Is there an airway problem? Is there a joint problem? Is there an occlusal problem? And many of these things can be caught on CBCT if you catch it. So, you know, there's so many great technologies out there. I've been in a CAD CAM for a long time. We're now 3D printing. But the one piece I could not live without is CBCT.
You know, it's interesting. On Thursday, that was my topic of discussion. I spoke on CBCT. And so yes, that is something that I can't live without, absolutely, in my practice. But if you look at the data from CBCT, and these are well-published, well-reviewed articles, that 20 to 30% on average, and that's a broad range, endodontic, periodontic lesions are diagnosed on CBCT 20 to 30% more versus on a two-dimensional distorted radiograph. Okay.
We're seeing fractures now. We know whether to send them to endo or whether to send them to the oral surgeon or put an implant in.
And I'm passionate about this too. I don't place implants on my practice, okay? But I always tell people, if you're placing implants, I'm sorry, I believe, my opinion is that CBCT is the standard of care. If you are ever called
you're going to be in trouble with me, Chad.
If you're ever called to the carpet,
we're going to jail.
Dental jail.
We're going to dental jail.
Well, I that's my opinion, that I believe it should be the standard of care. But additionally, I would say that if you're ever called to the carpet on the placement of an implant, through a simple Google search that I found by myself, 2012, the American Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Radiology said that a CBCT or some form of cross-sectional tomographic imaging be used for treatment planning implant cases.
JB, Chad did his homework for
and,
this.
And
Look
so,
at all these articles.
Yeah,
I can guarantee you
So impressed.
that any lawyer in the world could find that statement, and I find it to be very powerful. And so I think that it should be the standard of care. Is it? It's debatable, but I think it should be the standard of care. That's my opinion.
No, it is. I mean, one of the things that I've had the pleasure of doing in South Carolina is having served as a dental expert in a lot of legal cases, and I can tell you one of the first questions that the attorney, and it's always on behalf of dentists, I'm always on that side with the JUA in South Carolina. Sure. One of the first questions is, was a cone beam CT taken? The attorneys know that word.
Sure.
Yes.
That's not good.
No.
And they're safe, they're effective. It's fantastic.
And for me, again, I'm not an implant dentist. I don't place, but I get to be a hero every now and then because I get to take a CT on a patient who's only had PAs taken, and no fault of the previous doctor, they just didn't have access to the technology. But then I take a CT and I can see a lesion you truly could not see on a PA, 100%. Or a fracture that you couldn't see on a PA. And now I get to go in and say, it's not in your head. You can just see the patient just sort of like all that releasing from their body. They're like, I thought I was going crazy. Like I had this pain, no one could find it. I'd had multiple doctors look. You're the first person to say it's real pain. And it's because you saw something on a CT scan that validated their symptoms. Those patients are just looking for validation. They just want to know they're not losing their mind, that something weird isn't happening. And you get to be this little hero on a white horse that kind of walks in. And how few opportunities do we really get to do that, where you can give them an answer because you had the technology to support the diagnostic process.
Quick story, and then I want to find out what the technology is for you that you couldn't live without. But have either of you ever caught calcification in the carotid artery?
Absolutely.
Yes.
This past week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and as an aside, literally 2 days ago, my mother had a large carotid calcification, 90% removed. And so I got to go through that whole process, understand what a big deal that is. When the surgeon went in, and this really hit home for me. The surgeon came out and said to me, I've not really seen a case like this in a long time, but literally when I opened the carotid artery, there was a clot already forming on the calcification. She could not have been more than weeks away from a stroke or from dislodging that clot had she had any type of trauma or something like that. And it really hit home how important the things that we do are.
Yeah.
But
outside of dentistry.
Yeah, outside
those
of
are
dentistry.
incidental findings.
But with that said, I got on a side note. I want to hear what it is that you couldn't live without.
Well, you guys have talked about technology I have in my practice, and I would have put both of those in that bucket. Mine is a little bit more simple because I have said this on multiple occasions.
Explorer.
Yes. If you took the Mirror and Explorer away, I would quit dentistry.
Amalgamator.
Amalgamator. Yes, I only do amalgam. Even in front teeth. No, it's the isolate. And like some type of sophisticated isolation system. And I have said, after working on multiple like giant tongue cases where you're like, if I hadn't had the isolate, we would not have been able to finish this case. They're not even a sponsor of our show, but it is just a technology I've been using for 13 years.
They're right there.
I know. I believe wholeheartedly in what it does for us as clinicians. So if I could just speak to that, why is it valuable? I'm on so many dental forums where you're watching people who are talking about, what do I do? This patient just swallowed X. And when I have some type of retraction device in, my fear of losing an implant driver down the back of their throat or a sectional matrix or something like that definitely reduces pretty substantially. And the ergonomic fatigue that happens over time, and I feel it. When I work on a patient where I'm unable to use some type of retraction device, and then I have to use both arms and stronghold the cheeks and the tongue for an hour to be able to prep that number 15 dista buckle or whatever. I feel that fatigue. If I had to do that 15 times a day over the course of your career, those things are not going to last forever. These little, as my business partner calls them, my get-along sticks, aren't going to last forever because you're trying to do so much with just your arms and your hands. So for me, I love all the technology and I have it all in my practice, and I definitely believe in what it does for me. But if you took that away from me,
I get it.
I would quit. That would be it. I'd be done.
I get it.
Simple as it can be.
I think we all talked about some valid products that we can't live without, but I think the moral of the story is that as time goes on, do you want to be a tooth mechanic?
Right.
Or do you want to be a physician of the oral cavity? And we all agree as to what the products are. I mean, I don't even disagree with the Isolate. I think it's a fantastic product, but as we're talking about this, I think that's a trend in dentistry that the body tells us so much about the mouth and the mouth tells us so much about the body, and we need to bring those in tune with one another to be the best that we can be.
Yeah.
And that goes across the board. But as we talk about products, let's switch gears just a little bit.
Which, by the way, can I point out, because I know where you're headed?
Yeah.
I love you. Right. These are 3 products that would never have been talked about if this show had been 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're already sort
Right.
of living in the future of dentistry, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. But if we're talking about the future of dentistry,
Should we?
Nice segue, by the way.
Oh, that was well done.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was well
Like
done.
it was my first podcast.
Yeah.
Virtual.
If we're talking
Mine's
about
a
the
square.
well,
Can we
Why
talk
is it a
about my
square?
weird thumbs? I cannot make a heart.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I-
yeah.
look, I have weird
forgot.
thumbs.
You have jacked up
Everyone-
thumbs.
I really-
forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, circling back around.
Circling back in, let's talk about, and I think we inadvertently hit on one of them, but what are things that can shape the future of dentistry? And let's talk about in a positive way. So let's see things that are really going to change the way that we do dentistry. And so, Jeff, your practice is different than the two of ours. I'm going to start with you.
So I think, it's funny because I've really pivoted on this issue. I think that where we are all scared of AI, I think AI really becomes the dentist's friend as far as being a backup
Right.
for us in things that we may have otherwise missed. So just as I said, I couldn't really live without CBCT. And I've been doing this now, 16 years I've been taking CBCTs, maybe even a little longer than that. And I really got to a point where I felt like I was pretty darn good
Sure.
at reading full field of view CBCTs. But one of the things that I found so valuable is having these resources now, whether it be through AI or whether it be through a human overread, there are these services out there now that can really be a backup to us. So, for example, most of what I do in practice is TMJ, ortho, sleep. I really concentrate on most of the functional issues within our dental practices. But I have associates that may not be as in tune with what to look for in the joint when they take a CBCT, what they need to look for as far as the airway goes when they take a CBCT. So having kind of found a resource that will not only allow me to look at my CBCTs, but to have a neuroradiologist and an oral and maxillofacial radiologist look over these and say to my associates, hey, you got a little problem here, and then they're like, Jeff, they just identified a problem, I'm sending them over to you, because a lot of those cases, a lot of the TMJ cases within my own practice, which, we all say we run our practices so well, I hadn't trained my team well enough to identify all the problems that are there. And so now I have a third party that is reading my CBCTs, well worth it. And now I'm getting double the number of referrals from my own associates for sleep and TMJ because of what the third party has found, that extra set of eyes. And I also think that AI can contribute to that as well.
Yep.
JB,
All right, can I say two?
you can say two.
Yes. So the two for me would be, number one, you touched on it a little bit, Jeff, but I think 3D printing is going to be an
Oh, yeah.
interesting evolution. in
Wait, can I go
dentistry.
back?
Yeah.
You cannot have a do-over. Because, I envision a day where it's an intraoral scanner, and for us, it was a mill machine.
Yeah.
It's an intraoral scanner and a 3D printer for a new startup to be manufacturing crowns in their practice. They're getting really close to printing clear aligners in practice. Like, I think we are on the precipice, that's a big word, Chad, of something pretty big in the world of 3D printing. And the technology is economical enough that dentists will be able to acquire it and bring it into their practice without it having to be the huge financial burden that your first CBCT was, that my first intraoral scanner was. Those were really big chunks of money that we spent investing in that
Or just
technology.
CAD-CAM in
general,
general, right?
In general.
3D printing has already proven that it can be in a price point that is very different from these other really robust technologies, and yet the vastness of what it can do in your practice, I think a lot of dentists are going to be keeping a lot more stuff in-house, manufacturing their own custom trays, their own occlusal guards, their own crowns, their own clear aligners eventually. Like it's going to get really fun, I think, and just simple models. Like alginate won't maybe go away, but the number of alginates and dye pores that we have are going to look very different in 15 years. And that's my
I love that. Before we get to what you said, and not that I need a full do-over, but I need a partial do-over.
We'll give you a partial.
Because I want to piggyback on what you
it.
just said. Where I really see things going is that ability to 3D print really relies on several things. It relies on us getting the initial data. So going back to what Chad said about scanning technology, but I also think that there's a lot with starting to marry, with marriage of CBCT scans with these digital images that we're getting. And that's actually the path that we're on right now, which is to start providing more instant type of restorative or more immediate treatment, even for airway TMJ cases.
Yep.
So, Chad?
All right, my second one.
Oh, go on.
You
I'm sorry, I didn't
said
realize
I could. Jeez.
You're such a camera hog, JB.
So, anyway, my second one is, this is a little outside of the box as well, but for me, recently, is the integration of clear aligner therapy with pre-treatment planning your restorative outcomes. So I think where the technology, we saw it with DSD and digital smile design and moving in that arena, and how dentists can then pre-plan their orthodontic movement if they want to, or communicate that to their orthodontist and start pre-planning. Again, just like with implant dentistry, restoratively driven treatment plans. Like, what is the end outcome? Are we treating airway? Are we treating TMJ issues? Are we treating restorative challenges and aesthetic challenges? Like, what is the end outcome we want? And then using the technology to start supporting that. We're seeing that with Align and Smile Architect, bringing in that digital smile design opportunities within their platform. So I think fast forward 10 years from now, we're seeing a lot more of this restoratively driven treatment planning, whether it's orthodontic movement, implant dentistry, sleep and functional dentistry, and managing TMJ challenges. Like, all of this is going to start to go to how do we use the restorative outcomes, see the end first, and then using the technology to support the journey to help patients get from point A to point B. And quite frankly, how much more economical is that? When I tell patients, like, if I can just figure out where you want to be at the end, then we don't waste our time and money doing all these extra procedures and spending all this extra time doing dentistry, like single tooth, this, that, and the other. When at the end, if you're going to end up a dentist, why don't we start pre-planning that plan now, strategically putting those implants in for that fixed hybrid that we know you're headed towards. Don't waste your time on these other things. So, and they appreciate that. That's a much more effective way to get them to a restored, healthy outcome.
I wholeheartedly agree with what both of you all
What a
have
rubber
said.
stamp he is.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. But, I think along the lines
Have you ever thought of going into politics, Chad?
Yeah, he's just a rubber stamp. All you say, it's so great.
Yeah. But no, I think of this in a way as to when we walk into a place like this, who's going to have the most traffic at their booth in a few years, and who's going to have the largest amount of traffic? What's going to be that hot topic? I agree with what both of you said, and I think we're headed there. It's going to be technology based.
Okay.
But I'm going to say that AI is probably going to have the largest amount of traffic in their booth. AI it's being used by insurance companies, it's being used by dentists. There's a lot of traction. I think it has the ability to unfortunately be misused, but I also think it can be one of the best things to happen to your dental practice, in that, it's called a second opinion. Our eyes are our first opinion. Our eyes' interpretation of the radiograph is our second opinion. So clinical, radiographic, and then to me, this is a third opinion. And it once again is a product that engages the patient, that gives the patient our why as to whether we move forward with treatment or we don't. But I said this earlier, and I'm going to say it again because you all actually thought it was pretty smart of me. What are we watching? Why are we watching? I'm going to watch this. We're going to watch it.
Is somebody playing The Price is Right?
Watching to me means that in 6 months, we're going to be treating this.
Right.
So let's stop watching. There's two pathways to go down, prevention and restoration. This helps us decipher those two pathways and engage the patient in that decision. And if somebody can go over there and get the host of The Price is Right over here,
the Family Feud,
or the Wheel of Fortune, or the Family Feud, I want them on the stage right now. But no, I think that AI...
Joker.
I think that AI is the future of dentistry. I think it's such a powerful tool, but what we've got to understand is that it's not absolute, and we have to partake in the correction of AI, or it's never going to get better.
So it comes back again to that whole theory of co-diagnosis. So maybe what
And
really
communication.
is the future of dentistry is that patients and doctors collectively are collaborating together for the treatment planning and diagnosis of their care, and that there's no longer this, I'm the doctor and what I say is what you'll do, but it is, let's look at you holistically, let's review the systemic contributions, let's co-diagnose this and get you to an outcome where everybody can be happy. It's a much more enjoyable way to practice dentistry, a much more economical way for the patient to receive care. And honestly, I hope on the liability side, it becomes a lot less liability, because then the patients are actively participating in that process.
Well, don't you think too that in the day that we live in, our patients are so educated, right? Like we don't have to give them a video on implants for them to understand the implant procedure. We don't have to give them a video on why caries forms for them to understand. When we tell them something, what's the first thing that they're going to do? They're going to go home, they're going to go to Dr. Google, and they're going to look it up. Yep. And so we better be able to justify what it is that we're saying to them, because they are an educated public now. Much more so than when I first started, and they were willing to just take that, well, you're the doctor, I'm just going to do what you're going to say. So
they can validate you now.
Absolutely.
Online, both with your reviews and with scientific literature.
Right. And so to Chad's point, I really think that that's where AI fits in, is that, look, this is not just my opinion, this is not just what the literature is saying, but there's now been another set of eyes that has looked at this that is 100% unbiased, and let's look and see what this, let's co-diagnose this, let's make a plan together.
Do it together.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think, Chad? Did we hit it out of the park?
I think we hit it out of the park, but I think we're getting pretty close.
Have you guys seen that I'm too short to actually see the clock over
know.
here?
Well,
I'm like having to do this.
Here's what I'm going to tell you.
Where's my phone book? Did somebody not bring my phone book?
It's on your Palm Pilot. It's on your Palm Pilot.
It is on his BlackBerry.
Gosh, phone books still are useful.
Yes.
We are pretty close to closing.
That is not a part of the future of dentistry.
So should we call it a day?
I'd hate to leave.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say this. I'll close with this.
We have about it looks like 7 minutes left. Did you see the stretch?
Yeah.
We have about 7 minutes left. Here's what I think we should do.
We should each,
What does our group mean to you? What does our group mean to you, and why do you think that we should have an impact in the dental community? What are we doing for dentistry?
I think that we promote a couple of things. We promote education and we promote information. And it's both education and information that the dentist and the dental team member can use. I think it's valid, it's vetted, it's very important, it's pertinent, it's timely, and you know, we're not going to be your one-stop shop for the lowest discount in town. You know, we're not going to, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but yes, we do have educational partners, because that's how this group survives. Sponsorships and partnerships, they actually drive education. Mm-hmm. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have that. So I want to thank all of our educational partners that are with us, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do this and have fun every Wednesday night. But that's what our group means to us. It's just real, vetted, valid information that's timely and that can help you improve your workflows within your practice, whether you're a dentist, a team member, a manufacturer, whatever you are. Any dental professional, I think, can benefit from the information that we provide.
And piggyback off of what Chad has said, I truly believe we are the happy hour after the CE has closed. I have learned more, well, I've learned more in the last 3 years of being a part of this podcast than I have over the last 15 in dentistry. I have a unique opportunity to have a front row seat every week for some amazing individuals in the world of dentistry. And even now to call some of them friends. So that's been an incredibly impactful part of my professional journey. But to have those conversations, and we've had them after the CE course or after the advocacy event, after going to a house of delegates, and then you go and hang out with your friends afterwards, and you're talking about your pain points in dentistry, you're talking about where's the future, what are the challenges you feel in your practice, what are you struggling with, what are you winning with, like what solved that problem for you, how we share that information amongst each other, but then also to a much wider audience. If that helps one person solve a pain point in their practice, so they either don't have to go through it or they can at least solve it, then that is where we have provided our value to the dental community, that we're lifting them up, providing them a virtual fellowship and an in-person fellowship when we're together, but a safe, non-aggressive place for them to talk about vulnerabilities and pain points so that we can help them in their journey.
Yeah. So there was a reason I asked Chad about community earlier. And for me, there were so many impactful experiences in dentistry for me. And when I look back, all of them really revolve around the different communities that I've gotten to be a part of over the years. When I went off and I learned orthodontics, when I went off and learned TMJ, when I studied at the Coy Center, when I went to the Piper Center, and all these core groups, when I became involved in the AGD and got to know you, when Chad and I started going on the lecture circuit together and getting to know you, it's this sense of community that I really worry about. I think dentistry is great. Like, we've got all this great technology, the quality of care is getting better. We're able to offer so much. But what I worry about is losing that sense of community. So when COVID hit and Chad and I had been on airplanes 2-3 times a month, and you were running back and forth to all the delegate meetings and all the committees that you've been serving on, and there was this void where like there's so much information that's just not getting out there now, right? How do we get this information out there? But then how do we do it in a way that, number one, it can be trusted? Because we all know there's a lot of bad information out there. What's sales backed? Yep. We have to be confident in the information that we're getting. So that was really the goal for Dentists in the Know, which was to offer that kind of information in a very unpretentious. Our first thought was, let's do it at a happy hour every Wednesday. Let's chat through COVID. Let's make this fun. Let's make it where nobody feels uncomfortable asking a question, where there is no dumb question, where, you know what, that guy that you had on, I don't agree with it, here's why, and let's have a conversation, not let's berate anyone.
No.
Let's have a really hospitable conversation about these different topics. And so that's really what Dentists in the Know is bringing the dental industry and all of the people that work in the trenches of what we do day in and day out. How do we bring them the best information? How do they know they can trust it, that we can all three stand up on the podium and feel confident that this is information that is vetted, it's honest, and it's just great conversation. So no two other people that I would rather be doing this with than the two of you, Dr. Jennifer Bell and Dr. Chad Duplantis. And what a pleasure it's been it's been being at the ADA and SmileCon and meeting a lot of our friends. Do you all have any closing comments? Because I'm a little verklempt.
Oh, tissue?
I need a tissue.
Tissue?
Yeah.
Forget about it.
But you know, they almost had this over at the Rosen Center.
Thanks, everybody. I know Jennifer and I both second what Jeff said. And thanks to the ADA for asking us to be here, and I hope that maybe you got a little something out of today that was beneficial. One thing they don't offer here is a communication booth, and that's what we all need to focus on.
That's
so,
right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Great to be with y'all.
And that's a wrap.